You are listening to 52 Ways, a podcast by Scott and Christian Milford.
This is how you love one another, love one another.
Hey everybody, welcome to another chapter in our 52 Ways journey here on the 52 Ways podcast. My name's Scott Milford, this is Christian Milford, and he is smiling ear to ear. He's practicing his smiling because, why is smiling important, Christian?
Because it makes other people smile also.
It does. It makes people smile, and it shows people that you're not mad at them. It shows them that you're pleased. And there's actually some kind of like chemical that is released when you smile. And I've even heard psychologists say that if you smile a lot, you can sort of trick your body into thinking things are better than they are.
No wonder I think things are horrible.
Yeah, because you don't smile a whole lot, do you? Yeah.
No, I don't.
Well, we're excited to bring this with you. Hey, we got a different look here. We've been so busy. It's been hard to get everything set up. So we're trying this like sitting right next to each other. It's not the two boxes, and the sound quality. Hopefully it's okay without us using the microphones. We'll see how it sounds once we get done. But we've got one of the most critical verses in Matthew. You still smiling?
I'm gonna do it.
You got see, the trick is you got to find a way to like smile when appropriate.
I think what's happening is that you're just not used to me smiling, so you just think that it's so weird. I think everyone else thinks it's completely normal.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
So write in and tell if it's normal that he's sitting there grinning the whole time. He looks like a stinker, like there's a practical joke about to happen.
I'm just smiling.
like green slime is gonna fall on my head here in just a second.
Nothing's gonna happen.
Okay. I have a feeling something's gonna happen. But if you're new to us in the 52 Ways podcast, our mission is simple. We want to help cure the world of the horrible division that exists, and especially in the church and outside the church, and the way politics is entered in. And Christian, I think I told you, stop smiling, it's weird. I think I told you that, okay, now you look mad.
See?
I think I told you that Andy Stanley came up with a brand new book, and it's called Not In It to Win It. And it's all about so much of what we talk about here. It's all about the fact that it's a good smile. It doesn't match what I'm saying.
I'm trying. Okay. Should I look sad right now?
You should just look like you're interested in what I'm saying. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's good right there. You don't have to smile when you look that way. Yeah, okay.
Oh my gosh, my face.
Your smile muscles are weak.
Ugh.
So it's all about, and I just downloaded the audio version today.
It's already out?
Yeah, it just came out.
Cool.
But I'm excited. It's all about the way politics has entered in and divided our world, and not in it to win it. I'm assuming the title means that we shouldn't be so focused on winning every argument. We shouldn't be so focused on winning. We should be more focused on what we talk about in this podcast, which is loving God's children the way that He loved us. All right? So this
is probably the core of all of
this podcast.
Yeah, this podcast combining the New and the Old Testament.
Yeah. So this is Matthew 22. Matthew 22. We're going to start at verse 36, and this is right after Jesus had kind of embarrassed the Pharisees again. Like he kept giving them all these questions that they had to try to answer about, the coin and whose picture is on it. And they said Caesar. He asked them the question about John the Baptist, like whose authority did he baptize under? And they were like, well, we don't know. And so he was really asking them all these questions that they didn't know the answers to, or at least they didn't want to answer. And so then they tried to throw one back at him.
Oh.
Yeah. And then they should have learned by now that this doesn't go well when they do this. But they said, it says one of them, and this is verse 35, an expert in religious law tried to trap Jesus with this question. So this is a guy who's like an expert in the religious law. He said, "Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses?" And they think this is a question that there is no easy answer for, and that Jesus is going to kind of fall into their trap, and he's going to say something that's going to turn the people against them and prove that he's a fraud.
I think it's basically, those questions that have like two answers that no one knows, or like two like good answers, but both of them have like their pros and their cons.
Yeah.
I think there's one that they could say that they could give the obvious answer is like, do this, or you shall have no other gods before me. And then they know a way that they can like put that down. But then there's another one where they could say, Well, all of them are just as equal, like going for what sin is kind of the opposite side of the spectrum. Is all sin equal and stuff like that. So, there's probably two different directions that they knew that they could trap him for both, but then Jesus creates a third direction.
Yeah, so he comes back with verse 37 here. It says, Jesus replied, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind." And what do you think they said in response to that? Do you have any idea?
Based off what they said right here, this is the first greatest commandment.
No. So, Jesus says this is the first and greatest commandment. That's the second part.
Yes.
And that's verse 38. Yeah.
I don't know what they said.
So whenever they heard that, these scholars of the law, they immediately knew that Jesus was quoting the verse back in Deuteronomy. So this is part of what they were accustomed to hearing. This is something that they would say, yes, of course. And all the Jews that were listening to this exchange, they would say, he's got the right answer. He is a wonderful teacher, Of course he knows the Jewish law.
Well, I thought they were trying to trap him.
Well, they were, but so Jesus is giving them what they want to hear, because this is the obvious answer to their question. And they had heard his teaching, and so they knew that he might just say something here that would sound very very much like heresy. So then this is where Jesus kind of drops the bomb. He says, "A second is equally important." And they're like, huh? A second is equally important? Could this be? And then they're like, yes, this is where he's about ready to stick his foot in his mouth. This is where we can show all these stupid Jewish people who happen to be our Jewish people, but that we can show all these idiots that this man is not worth following. This is where they think they have him trapped, because there is no second law that's equally important. But then Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself. And if you notice, he doesn't say, here's a second commandment that's subsidiary, that is a subsidiary of the first one.
Equal.
It's equal. And I've heard it said that it's a second commandment, not in terms of priority, but it's a second commandment in terms of sequence. So first, God revealed the first one, which is love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind. And now you're ready for the second part of that sentence, which is equally as important. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Yep.
And then he goes on to say the entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments.
Yep.
So that's where we're tying in the old.
All those 500 subset little laws are based off of love your neighbor as yourself and love God.
Yeah. And our purpose statement at Skyline Church for years was love God, love others, and make a difference. And that was kind of a bit of a trendy purpose statement in churches. Your church, if you're listening to this, may have had the same thing for a while. But it's really rooted in this right here is love God and love people, and not one being more important than the other. Then he says all the law of the Old Testament, the law of Moses, and everything the prophets said, and said that we should do, they're based on these two commandments. So when Jesus comes, he fulfills the Old Testament law by doing those two things really perfectly. And so he fulfills it. And the way that we can serve the law is by loving God and loving people. I'm going to block that yawn right there. So that's really the core essence of this podcast, is taking what Jesus said is most important and learning how to do it based on how he did it. So at this point, this is setting up the Good Samaritan parable. Did you know that? So when he says love your neighbor, what eventually is going to happen here, and we'll talk about the goods.
He'll define who the neighbor is.
Yeah, well, what do you mean by neighbor? Who's my neighbor? Who do
Is it like your physical neighbor? Because that's what I always thought at first.
The guy that lives next door.
The guy that lives next door.
Yeah. So let's not get into that, because we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about the neighbor thing. And we're actually going to be on vacation next week. So Christian and I will bring this to you from location. We're actually going to Hawaii, which is amazing that we're going to Hawaii.
What is that?
So even Christians today.
Oh, I thought you said like me.
Oh, not you.
Me in general.
Like believers.
Oh, I thought you
not
said
Christian
Christian.
milfers. But yeah, but
Even
the note
Christian,
that
even Christian today usually prioritize loving God over others, which is probably true.
Probably true. Well, but so I think the body of Christ, the church today, very commonly will prioritize loving God over loving people. It just feels holier. It just feels like you're being more faithful to God when you say things and do things that show your love for Him, that show your devotion for Him.
Yeah. Would you rather? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Would you rather love someone who's got it all figured out or someone who doesn't?
Yeah. Well, how does that tie in here?
Because loving God has it all figured out, and everyone else doesn't.
I see. Yeah. I like that. That's good. It's easier to love God because people oftentimes make us really mad, and they say things that hurt, and you don't understand why they're saying things that they're saying, and why they're thinking the things they're thinking. But it's easier to love God. He's the perfect God, and it's harder to love people. And so this is a problem we have in our culture, is that, and I think that a lot of times we think it's okay to not love people, even to hate people in the name of God. And that's like so the opposite. Like all those people who believe differently than me, let's just put the dust off our feet and move on, because that's what it says in the Bible, and we're gonna feel righteous in doing so at every opportunity. And it's a mindset, if your mindset it predisposes you to do that, you're gonna do that. And so what we want to do here is help retrain our mindset to where our first notion, our first goal is to love people and love God equally. All right. Loving His children is an expression of loving God. And it's the whole, like when you love the least of these, which we're going to learn that lesson later on, when you love and provide clothing and food and shelter for the least of these, Jesus says, you're loving me. And so by loving people, you are loving God. And that's the beauty of how this whole web of teaching ties together. All right? You're still smiling? Mm-hmm.
I've dozed out.
You're smiling and yawning,
I've dozed out, but I've been able to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give you a shot of pure caffeine before these things.
No, that'll make it even worse.
And I think this makes sense. The whole idea of loving God's children being an equal command to loving God, it makes sense. So as a dad, I can tell you, Christian, that when people are nice to you, when people do things to you, or to Reese or to Lucy.
Oh, to me specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that person.
Whoa.
Like that is one of my favorite people. I think that's one of the best people in the world. When people tell me about your violin playing and how great it is, or Reese and her singing, or Lucy in her playing and her acting and her fun and her smile, and the joy that she brings to people. Like when people say that to me, it just makes me want to give that person a hug and say, you rock.
Don't do that.
and I think there's some element of that with God, not to put too many human qualities on God, but he loves it when people love His children. So if you want to be faithful to God, then love His children. And that's the lesson for today. Love God and love people, and don't prioritize the loving God in the name of religiosity. And I think that's what it boils down to a lot, is that you feel like you're doing something very religious, and then you get into the whole earning your faith thing. Mm-hmm. Like whenever you feel like you're doing religious things and you're pleasing God by the things you do, then it's like, God, what do you think about me? Look at the way that I just served you. Look at the way that I just loved you. Listen to that prayer that I just prayed. Look at the way I stood up for what is right, even though I put that person down in the process. These are the things that make us feel good, because it makes us feel like we deserve something back from God. And the opposite is true. The more you try to earn your way, Paul tells us, you're subjecting yourself to the entire law. So good luck keeping up with the entire law. Mm-hmm. How long would you last trying to keep up with the entire law?
Not long.
Not long. So that's the lesson for today, Christian. Mm-hmm. We're going to make this a short one here
Smiling
today.
Makes me tired.
Yeah, you are just, I feel like you're going to just keel right over if I don't wind this thing down here in just a minute. Maybe I need to let you talk more.
Maybe.
Yeah. Would you have much to say?
No.
So the next time you're faced with a situation and you have to choose, am I going to love God right now, or am I going to love people? I know it doesn't happen a lot, but maybe just be aware, be conscious of, am I shunning people because I feel like I first need to, do something that I think is going to be pleasing to God. And then remember that by not shunning that person, you are doing something that's very, very pleasing to God. As a matter of fact, it's the thing that Jesus said is most important. All right, that's going to do it for today. Next week, we'll come at you live from Hawaii. And
Yay.
We're excited, and it's going to be beautiful. We'll have a beautiful background behind us, and I can't wait to see what that's going to look like.
We could blog.
Oh, blogs are like so 2010.
What? No, it isn't.
Yeah, the blogs are done. Now it's
What?
podcast. That's the thing now. So we're like hip and cool with the podcast thing,
I'm not cool then.
even though we need more listeners.
What about a? Yeah, I forgot. Bye.
All right, until next time. Be well, my friends.
Love.